friends, I'm Ellie. Welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, I will bring you more interesting and meaningful fairy tales. Let's listen, you'll love it. The first fairy tale, The Red Shoes. There was once a little girl who was very pretty and delicate, but in summer she was forced to run about with bare feet. She was so poor, and in winter wear very large wooden shoes, which made her little insteps quite red, and that looked so dangerous. In the middle of the village lived old Dame Shoemaker. She sat and sewed together, as well as she could, a little pair of shoes out of old red strips of cloth. They were very clumsy, but it was a kind thought. They were meant for the little girl. The little girl was called Karen. On the very day her mother was buried, Karen received the red shoes and wore them for the first time. They were certainly not intended for mourning, but she had no others, and with stockingless feet she followed the poor straw coffin in them. Suddenly a large old carriage drove up, and a large old lady sat in it. She looked at the little girl, felt compassion for her, and then said to the clergyman,
"Here, give me the little girl. I will adopt her."
And Karen believed all this happened on account of the red shoes, but the old lady thought they were horrible, and they were burned. But Karen herself was cleanly and nicely dressed. She must learn to read and sew, and people said she was a nice little thing, but the looking glass said,
"Thou art more than nice, thou art beautiful."
Now the queen once traveled through the land, and she had her little daughter with her. And this little daughter was a princess, and people streamed to the castle. And Karen was there also, and the little princess stood in her fine white dress, in a window, and let herself be stared at. She had neither a train nor a golden crown, but splendid red Morocco shoes. They were certainly far handsomer than those Dame Shoemaker had made for little Karen. Nothing in the world can be compared with red shoes. Now Karen was old enough to be confirmed. She had new clothes and was to have new shoes also. The rich shoemaker in the city took the measure of her little foot. This took place at his house. In his room, where stood large glass cases, filled with elegant shoes and brilliant boots. All this looked charming, but the old lady could not see well, and so had no pleasure in them. In the midst of the shoes stood a pair of red ones, just like those the princess had worn. How beautiful they were! The shoemaker said also they had been made for the child of a count, but had not fitted.
"That must be patent leather,"
said the old lady.
"They shine so."
"Yes, they shine,"
said Karen. And they fitted, and were bought, but the old lady knew nothing about their being red. Else she would never have allowed Karen to have gone in red shoes to be confirmed. Yet such was the case. Everybody looked at her feet, and when she stepped through the chancel door on the church pavement, it seemed to her as if the old figures on the tombs, those portraits of old preachers and preachers' wives, with stiff ruffs and long black dresses, fixed their eyes on her red shoes. And she thought only of them as the clergyman laid his hand upon her head, and spoke of the holy baptism, of the covenant with God, and how she should be now a mature Christian. And the organ pealed so solemnly, the sweet children's voices sang, and the old music directors sang. But Karen only thought of her red shoes. In the afternoon, the old lady heard from everyone that the shoes had been red, and she said that it was very wrong of Karen, that it was not at all becoming, and that in future Karen should only go in black shoes to church, even when she should be older. The next Sunday there was the sacrament, and Karen looked at the black shoes, looked at the red ones, looked at them again, and put on the red shoes. The sun shone gloriously. Karen and the old lady walked along the path through the corn. It was rather dusty there. At the church door stood an old soldier with a crutch, and with a wonderfully long beard, which was more red than white, and he bowed to the ground, and asked the old lady whether he might dust her shoes. And Karen stretched out her little foot.
"See, what beautiful dancing shoes,"
said the soldier.
"Sit firm when you dance."
And he put his hand out towards the soles. And the old lady gave the old soldier alms, and went into the church with Karen. And all the people in the church looked at Karen's red shoes, and all the pictures, and as Karen knelt before the altar, and raised the cup to her lips, she only thought of the red shoes, and they seemed to swim in it, and she forgot to sing her psalm, and she forgot to pray, "Our Father in heaven." Now all the people went out of church, and the old lady got into her carriage. Karen raised her foot to get in after her, when the old soldier said,
"Look, what beautiful dancing shoes."
And Karen could not help dancing a step or two. And when she began, her feet continued to dance. It was just as though the shoes had power over them. She danced round the church corner. She could not leave off. The coachman was obliged to run after and catch hold of her, and he lifted her in the carriage, but her feet continued to dance so that she trod on the old lady dreadfully. At length she took the shoes off, and then her legs had peace. The shoes were placed in a closet at home, but Karen could not avoid looking at them. Now the old lady was sick, and it was said she could not recover. She must be nursed and waited upon, and there was no one whose duty it was so much as Karen's. But there was a great ball in the city, to which Karen was invited. She looked at the old lady, who could not recover. She looked at the red shoes, and she thought there could be no sin in it. She put on the red shoes. She might do that also, she thought. But then she went to the ball and began to dance. When she wanted to dance to the right, the shoes would dance to the left, and when she wanted to dance up the room, the shoes danced back again, down the steps, into the street, and out of the city gate. She danced, and was forced to dance straight out into the gloomy wood. Then it was suddenly light up among the trees, and she fancied it must be the moon, for there was a face, but it was the old soldier with the red beard. He sat there, nodded his head, and said,
Look, what beautiful dancing shoes.
Then she was terrified, and wanted to fling off the red shoes, but they clung fast, and she pulled down her stockings, but the shoes seemed to have grown to her feet. And she danced, and must dance, over fields and meadows, in rain and sunshine, by night and day, but at night it was the most fearful. She danced over the churchyard, but the dead did not dance. They had something better to do than to dance. She wished to seat herself on a poor man's grave, where the bitter tansy grew, but for her there was neither peace nor rest. And when she danced towards the open church door, she saw an angel standing there. He wore long, white garments. He had wings which reached from his shoulders to the earth. His countenance was severe and grave, and in his hand he held a sword, broad and glittering.
Dance shalt thou,
Said he,
dance in thy red shoes till thou art pale and cold, till thy skin shrivels up and thou art a skeleton. Dance shalt thou from door to door, and where proud, vain children dwell, thou shalt knock, that they may hear thee and tremble. Dance shalt thou.
Mercy.
cried Karen. But she did not hear the angel's reply, for the shoes carried her through the gate into the fields, across roads and bridges, and she must keep ever dancing. One morning she danced past a door which she well knew. Within sounded a psalm. A coffin, decked with flowers, was borne forth. Then she knew that the old lady was dead, and felt that she was abandoned by all, and condemned by the angel of God. She danced, and she was forced to dance through the gloomy night. The shoes carried her over stack and stone. She was torn till she bled. She danced over the heath till she came to a little house. Here, she knew dwelt the executioner, and she tapped with her fingers at the window, and said,
Come out. Come out. I cannot come in, for I am forced to dance.
And the executioner said,
Thou dost not know who I am, I fancy. I strike bad people's heads off, and I hear that my axe rings.
Don't strike my head off.
said Karen.
Then I can't repent of my sins. But strike off my feet in the red shoes.
And then she confessed her entire sin. And the executioner struck off her feet with the red shoes, but the shoes danced away with the little feet across the field into the deep wood. And he carved out little wooden feet for her, and crutches, taught her the psalm criminals always sing, and she kissed the hand which had wielded the axe, and went over the heath.
Now I have suffered enough for the red shoes,
said she.
Now I will go into the church that people may see me.
And she hastened towards the church door, but when she was near it, the red shoes danced before her, and she was terrified and turned round. The whole week she was unhappy, and wept many bitter tears. But when Sunday returned, she said,
Well, now I have suffered and struggled enough. I really believe I am as good as many a one who sits in the church and holds her head so high.
And away she went boldly, but she had not got farther than the churchyard gate before she saw the red shoes dancing before her, and she was frightened, and turned back, and repented of her sin from her heart. And she went to the parsonage, and begged that they would take her into service. She would be very industrious, she said, and would do everything she could. She did not care about the wages, only she wished to have a home, and be with good people. And the clergyman's wife was sorry for her and took her into service, and she was industrious and thoughtful. She sat still and listened when the clergyman read the Bible in the evenings. All the children thought a great deal of her, but when they spoke of dress, and grandeur, and beauty, she shook her head. The following Sunday, when the family was going to church, they asked her whether she would not go with them, but she glanced sorrowfully, with tears in her eyes, at her crutches. The family went to hear the word of God, but she went alone into her little chamber. There was only room for a bed and chair to stand in it, and here she sat down with her prayer book, and whilst she read with a pious mind, the wind bore the strains of the organ towards her, and she raised her tearful countenance, and said,
Oh God, help me!
And the sun shone so clearly, and straight before her stood the angel of God in white garments, the same she had seen that night at the church door, but he no longer carried the sharp sword, but in its stead a splendid green spray, full of roses. And he touched the ceiling with the spray, and the ceiling rose so high, and where he had touched it there gleamed a golden star. And he touched the walls, and they widened out, and she saw the organ which was playing. She saw the old pictures of the preachers and the preachers' wives. The congregation sat in cushioned seats and sang out of their prayer books. For the church itself had come to the poor girl in her narrow chamber, or else she had come into the church. She sat in the pew with the clergyman's family, and when they had ended the psalm and looked up, they nodded and said, It is right that thou art come.
It was through mercy,
She said, and the organ pealed, and the children's voices in the choir sounded so sweet and soft. The clear sunshine streamed so warmly through the window into the pew where Karen sat. Her heart was so full of sunshine, peace, and joy that it broke. Her soul flew on the sunshine to God, and there no one asked after the red shoes. The red shoes symbolized vanity and materialism. Karen's desire for fashionable and beautiful shoes leads her down a path of sin and suffering. The story warns against the dangers of prioritizing external appearances over inner virtues. Karen's suffering and struggles serve as a means of repentance for her vanity. Her journey, marked by dancing uncontrollably in the red shoes, represents the consequences of her actions. Ultimately, her repentance and remorse lead to redemption and a return to a virtuous life. The red shoes' magical and uncontrollable dancing symbolizes the unrelenting nature of sin. Once Karen puts on the red shoes, she cannot stop dancing, emphasizing the idea that engaging in sinful behavior can lead to a loss of control and consequences beyond one's anticipation. Karen's redemption occurs within the context of her renewed faith and humility. The church, the prayers, and the angels symbolize the transformative power of faith and a return to spiritual values as a means of finding peace and redemption. The angel's appearance with a sword initially represents judgment, but later, with a spray of roses, symbolizes mercy and compassion. This duality suggests that while sin has consequences, there is always the possibility of redemption through mercy and grace. The second fairy tale, The Shepherdess and the Sweep. Have you ever seen an old wing covered quite black with age and ornamented with carved foliage and curious figures? Well, just such a cupboard stood in a parlor and had been left to the family as a legacy by the great-grandmother. It was covered from top to bottom with carved roses and tulips. The most curious scrolls were drawn upon it, and out of them peeped little stags' heads with antlers. In the middle of the cupboard door was the carved figure of a man most ridiculous to look at. He grinned at you, for no one could call it laughing. He had goat's legs, little horns on his head, and a long beard. The children in the room always called him Major General Field Sergeant Commander Billy Goat's Legs. It was certainly a very difficult name to pronounce, and there are very few who ever received such a title, but then it seemed wonderful how he came to be carved at all. Yet there he was, always looking at the table under the looking glass, where stood a very pretty little shepherdess made of china. Her shoes were gilt, and her dress had a red rose or an ornament. She wore a hat, and carried a crook, that were both gilded, and looked very bright and pretty. Close by her side stood a little chimney sweep, as black as coal, and also made of china. He was, however, quite as clean and neat as any other china figure. He only represented a black chimney sweep, and the china workers might just as well have made him a prince, had they felt inclined to do so. He stood holding his ladder quite handily, and his face was as fair and rosy as a girl's. Indeed, that was rather a mistake. It should have had some black marks on it. He and the shepherdess had been placed close together, side by side, And being so placed, they became engaged to each other, for they were very well suited, being both made of the same sort of china and being equally fragile. Close to them stood another figure, 3 times as large as they were, and also made of china. He was an old Chinaman who could nod his head and used to pretend that he was the grandfather of the shepherdess, although he could not prove it. He, however, assumed authority over her, and therefore went. Major General Field Sergeant Commander Billy Goat's Legs asked for the little shepherdess to be his wife. He nodded his head to show that he consented.
You will have a husband,
Said the old Chinaman to her.
who I really believe is made of mahogany. He will make you a lady of Major General Field Sergeant Commander Billy Goat's Legs. He has the whole cupboard full of silver plate, which he keeps locked up in secret drawers.
I won't go into the dark cupboard.
Said the little shepherdess.
I have heard that he has 11 China wives there already.
Then you shall be the 12th.
Said the old Chinaman.
Tonight, as soon as you hear a rattling in the old cupboard, you shall be married, as true as I am a Chinaman.
And then he nodded his head and fell asleep. Then the little shepherdess cried, and looked at her sweetheart, the china chimney sweep.
I must entreat you
Said she.
to go out with me into the wide world, for we cannot stay here.
I will do whatever you wish.
Said the little chimney sweep.
Let us go immediately. I think I shall be able to maintain you with my profession.
If we were but safely down from the table,
Said she.
I shall not be happy till we are really out in the world.
Then he comforted her and showed her how to place her little foot on the carved edge and gilt leaf ornaments of the table. He brought his little ladder to help her, and so they contrived to reach the floor. But when they looked at the old cupboard, they saw it was all in an uproar. The carved stags pushed out their heads, raised their antlers, and twisted their necks. The Major General sprung up in the air and cried out to the old Chinaman.
They are running away! They are running away!
The two were rather frightened at this, so they jumped into the drawer of the window seat. Here were 3 or 4 packs of cards not quite complete, and a doll's theater, which had been built up very neatly. A comedy was being performed in it, and all the queens of diamonds, clubs, and hearts, and spades sat in the first row fanning themselves with tulips, and behind them stood all the knaves, showing that they had heads above and below as playing cards generally have. The play was about 2 lovers who were not allowed to marry, and the shepherdess wept because it was so like her own story.
I cannot bear it.
Said she.
I must get out of the drawer.
But when they reached the floor and cast their eyes on the table, there was the old Chinaman awake and shaking his whole body, till all at once down he came on the floor. Plump!
The old Chinaman is coming.
Cried the little shepherdess in a fright, and down she fell on one knee.
I have thought of something.
Said the chimney sweep.
Let us get into the great potpourri jar which stands in the corner. There we can lie on rose leaves and lavender, and throw salt in his eyes if he comes near us.
No, that will never do.
Said she.
Because I know that the Chinaman and the potpourri jar were lovers once, and there always remains behind a feeling of goodwill between those who have been so intimate as that. No, there is nothing left for us but to go out into the wide world.
Have you really courage enough to go out into the wide world with me?
Said the chimney sweep.
Have you thought how large it is, and that we can never come back here again?
Yes, I have.
She replied. When the chimney sweep saw that she was quite firm, he said,
My way is through the stove and up the chimney. Have you courage to creep with me through the firebox and the iron pipe? When we get to the chimney, I shall know how to manage very well. We shall soon climb too high for anyone to reach us, and we shall come through a hole in the top out into the wide world.
So he led her to the door of the stove.
It looks very dark.
Said she. Still she went in with him through the stove and through the pipe, where it was as dark as pitch.
Now we are in the chimney.
Said he.
And look, there is a beautiful star shining above it.
It was a real star shining down upon them as if it would show them the way. So they clambered and crept on and a frightful steep place it was, but the chimney sweep helped her and supported her till they got higher and higher. He showed her the best places on which to set her little china foot, so at last they reached the top of the chimney, and sat themselves down, for they were very tired, as may be supposed. The sky, with all its stars, was over their heads, and below were the roofs of the town. They could see for a very long distance out into the wide world, and the poor little shepherdess leaned her head on her chimney sweep's shoulder, and wept till she washed the gilt off her sash. The world was so different to what she expected.
This is too much,
She said,
I cannot bear it. The world is too large. Oh, I wish I were safe back on the table again. Under the looking glass, I shall never be happy till I am safe back again. Now I have followed you out into the wide world. You will take me back if you love me.
Then the chimney sweep tried to reason with her, and spoke of the old Chinaman, and of the Major General Field Sergeant Commander Billy Goat's legs. But she sobbed so bitterly, and kissed her little chimney sweep till he was obliged to do all she asked, foolish as it was. And so, with a great deal of trouble, they climbed down the chimney, and then crept through the pipe and stove, which were certainly not very pleasant places. Then they stood in the dark firebox, and listened behind the door to hear what was going on in the room. As it was all quiet, they peeped out. Alas! There lay the old Chinaman on the floor. He had fallen down from the table as he attempted to run after them, and was broken into 3 pieces. His back had separated entirely, and his head had rolled into a corner of the room. The Major General stood in his old place, and appeared lost in thought.
This is terrible,
Said the little shepherdess.
My poor old grandfather is broken to pieces, and it is our fault. I shall never live after this.
And she wrung her little hands.
He can be riveted.
Said the chimney sweep.
He can be riveted. Do not be so hasty. If they cement his back, and put a good rivet in it, he will be as good as new, and be able to say as many disagreeable things to us as ever.
Do you think so?
Said she, and then they climbed up to the table, and stood in their old places.
As we have done no good,
Said the chimney sweep.
we might as well have remained here, instead of taking so much trouble.
I wish grandfather was riveted.
Said the shepherdess.
Will it cost much, I wonder?
And she had her wish. The family had the Chinaman's back mended, and a strong rivet put through his neck. He looked as good as new, but he could no longer nod his head.
You have become proud since your fall broke you to pieces.
Said Major General Field Sergeant Commander Billy Goat's legs.
You have no reason to give yourself such airs. Am I to have her or not?
The chimney sweep and the little shepherdess looked piteously at the old Chinaman, for they were afraid he might nod, but he was not able. Besides, it was so tiresome to be always telling strangers he had a rivet in the back of his neck. And so the little China people remained together, and were glad of the grandfather's rivet, and continued to love each other till they were broken to pieces. The chimney sweep and the shepherdess are 2 small characters, but their relationship is not limited by appearance or background. Despite being inanimate objects facing many difficulties, their love and sacrifice help them overcome all challenges. The shepherdess, initially craving freedom and desiring the vast world, realizes that happiness does not necessarily come from unlimited freedom. Contentment and love can be found in small and secure environments. Their act of working together to help Mr. Chang, an elderly and whimsical character, demonstrates care and concern for others. Despite causing an accident for him, they accept responsibility and assist him when he faces difficulties. The repair of Mr. Chang after being damaged is a symbol of the ability to recover and reconcile in family and relationships. The repair not only addresses the material damage but also represents the restoration of relationships and forgiveness. Although they may dream of a vast world, they ultimately realize that happiness can be found in small and simple things. Enjoying life in the present and appreciating the current circumstances becomes an essential message. The third fairy tale, The Jumper. The flea, the grasshopper, and the skipjack once wanted to see which of them could jump highest, and they invited the whole world and whoever else would come to see the grand sight. And there the three famous jumpers were met together in the room.
Yes, I'll give my daughter to him who jumps highest.
Said the king.
Or it would be mean to let these people jump for nothing.
The flea stepped out first. He had very pretty manners and bowed in all directions, for he had young ladies' blood in his veins and was accustomed to consort only with human beings, and that was of great consequence. Then came the grasshopper. He was certainly much heavier, but he had a good figure and wore the green uniform that was born with him. This person, moreover, maintained that he belonged to a very old family in the land of Egypt and that he was highly esteemed there. He had just come from the field, he said, and had been put into a card house 3 stories high, and all made of picture cards with the figures turned inwards. There were doors and windows in the house cut in the body of the Queen of Hearts.
I think so.
He said.
That's 16 native crickets who have chirped from their youth up and have never yet had a card house of their own would become thinner than they are with envy if they were to hear me.
Both of them, the flea and the grasshopper, took care to announce who they were, and that they considered themselves entitled to marry a princess. The skipjack said nothing, but it was said of him that he thought all the more, and directly the yard dog had smelt at him, he was ready to assert that the skipjack was of good family, and formed from the breastbone of an undoubted goose. The old counselor, who had received 3 medals for holding his tongue, declared that the skipjack possessed the gift of prophecy. One could tell by his bones whether there would be a severe winter or a mild one, and that's more than one can always tell from the breastbone of the man who writes the almanac.
I shall not say anything more,
said the old king.
I only go on quietly and always think the best.
Now they were to take their jump. The flea sprang so high that no one could see him, and then they asserted that he had not jumped at all. That was very mean. The grasshopper only sprang half as high, but he sprang straight into the king's face, and the king declared that was horribly rude. The skipjack stood a long time considering. At last people thought that he could not jump at all.
I only hope he's not become unwell,
said the yard dog, and then he smelt at him again. Tap! He sprang with a little crooked jump just into the lap of the princess, who sat on a low golden stool. Then the king said,
The highest leap was taken by him who jumped up to my daughter, for therein lies the point, but it requires head to achieve that, and the skipjack has shown that he has a head.
And so he had the princess.
I jumped highest, after all,
said the flea.
but it's all the same. Let her have the goose bone with its lump of wax and bit of stick. I jumped to the highest, but in this world a body is required if one wishes to be seen.
And the flea went into foreign military service, where it is said he was killed. The grasshopper seated himself out in the ditch, and thought and considered how things happened in the world. And he too said,
Body is required. Body is required.
And then he sang his own melancholy song, and from that we have gathered this story, which they say is not true, though it's in print. The tale suggests that individuals should not be judged solely based on outward appearances or boastful claims. The flea and the grasshopper both make grand announcements about their qualities and background. Yet the skipjack, who remains silent, demonstrates true worth through actions rather than words. The skipjack, characterized by silence and contemplation, ultimately proves to be the wisest. His quiet reflection allows him to make a well-thought-out decision, securing the princess. This highlights the virtues of humility, wisdom, and the importance of thinking before acting. The story emphasizes the importance of actions over words. While the flea and the grasshopper boast about their abilities and lineage, the skipjack's silent action speaks louder and secures the princess. This suggests that accomplishments and deeds hold more significance than mere talk. The tale incorporates elements of irony and satire, especially in the exaggerated claims made by the flea and the grasshopper. It may serve as a satirical commentary on societal attitudes and the tendency to believe grandiose statements without evidence. The story ends here. Do you like the fairy tales I tell you today? Come back tomorrow to learn more valuable lessons through fairy tales. Bye-bye!